Good noontime to everyone. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees is now convened in a special call board meeting on Tuesday, July 7th, 2020, in the boardroom of Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center located at 10,300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 12 p.m. This special call board meeting is to consider giving the Cypress-Fairbanks ISD superintendent authorization to proceed with the purchasing of technology items for students in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in a closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by the sections 551.071 to 551.084 inclusive of the Texas Government Code. Item number 1 is public comments. Patrons who have duly registered per policy BED local may address the board and make policy statements on the agenda item during or before the board's consideration of the item. The board may allow public comment on agenda items at all meetings. The board will continue with the remaining agenda after the registered patrons have had an opportunity to speak, and we have had no one sign up. So action item number 2A, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent to approve the purchase of devices for students, LTE internet access to students and other items needed to support a one-to-one solution through the Department of Information Resources Purchasing Cooperative at an amount not to exceed $44 million. Presenter today is Karen Smith. Paula Ross will not be here. Is Dr. Macias here? There you are. Becky Cook, Roy Sprague, and Bill Powell. So I'll turn it over to Karen Smith.
Before Karen gets started, I just want to give a little quick lead in. First of all, if Marnie doesn't mind, it's not the agenda item, but I think we're okay legally. Introduce a new member of the team, Marnie.
Yes, thank you very much. And he didn't know he was going to be on camera, so he's probably a little embarrassed, but I would ask my new Assistant General Counsel, Harry Wright, to stand up and say hello.
Hello, everyone.
I'll introduce Harry formally in August, but he joins us from, yes, Dawn, I know, he came back for his second day, so Dawn wasn't, everyone keeps asking him this morning, so you've come back, so everyone's excited that he's willing to give me another shot, so thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Marnie. It's good to have you. God bless you.
Yeah.
Karen, you're up.
Okay, before Karen comes up,
Karen, sit down again.
I'm gonna just a quick lead in, and Karen, along with several on our team, are going to give you all the details of our plan moving forward. But it's no surprise to anyone around this dais or in the room or in the community that we're going through an unprecedented time. And when you're going through an unprecedented time, you do unprecedented things. So we are trying to prepare not only for in-person instruction, but we also want to have the richest curriculum along with the richest instruction that we can have virtually. So that's what today is all about, and we're going to make a presentation to you today about you can see it's called CFISD Learning Together. Everywhere I kind of called it CFISD Live. So wherever you are, whether you're in person or at home or wherever you might be, we want to make sure that we can make sure that our kids get the richest experience. So Karen.
Thank you, Dr. Henry, and thank you, President Covey and board members. We appreciate you being here today. On Tuesday, June 23rd, the Commissioner of Education introduced the Texas Education Agency's Strong Start 2020-21 Preparing for Remote Instruction Guidance. In response to TEA's guidance for remote instruction, we would like to provide you an overview of the proposed CFISD Learning Together Everywhere, or LTE, one-to-one program. Presenting with me today are Karen Fuller, the Director of Network Infrastructure and Communications, and then Katie Gentry, Director of the One-to-One Program and Inventory Systems. Our district is very fortunate that both Karen and Katie have experience in implementing a successful one-to-one program in a large district. I would also like to highlight some of the key players involved in developing and supporting this program. Paula Ross, Assistant Superintendent of Technology Services and Information Systems, as well as the entire Technology Services team. And I also want to especially thank Dr. Linda Macias, Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Heather Bergman, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, and Becky Cook, Director of Instructional Technology. The CFISD Learning Together Everywhere, or LTE one-to-one program vision is to provide equitable access to all students. The one-to-one nature of LTE program will support students and connect them to high-quality instruction and resources available, whether they are connecting virtually or in person. The program will support the Texas Education Agency's Strong Start Plan. And I will now turn it over to Karen Fuller so she can introduce the CFISD LTE one-to-one program.
Good afternoon. The district is proposing a device for every student which will allow for instruction to continue no matter where the student is currently learning. Cameras and microphones will allow Zoom and other video conferencing resources to enhance instructional experience. Snap-on cases will be provided to protect the devices so that they can continue to use them throughout their life cycle. Based on instructional needs identified, the district has selected a Chromebook as the device of choice. The benefits of the Chromebook device are user-friendly, low-cost, high-quality device, long battery life, touchscreen, increased stability and security, quick startup and login. Now I'm going to turn this over to Katie Gentry to share more details of the CFISD LTE one-to-one program.
Good morning. CFISD has issued devices in the spring and summer of 2020 to support the learning at home, summer school programs, and industry certifications and testing. Distribution was prioritized for special needs, ESL, at-risk, AP, and dual credit students. Additional distribution of devices was based on identified student need. The district is prepared to release a request for quotes immediately following this meeting for additional Chromebook devices to complete the one-to-one program. Once quotes have been received, the district will be able to determine the availability of devices and to develop the distribution plan. The district will use our current inventory system to track and distribute devices to students. Quotes will include accidental damage protection coverage in order to repair and redistribute devices. To assist with retrieval of lost devices, location software will be installed on all Chromebooks. Device repair will be managed by CFISD Technical Services. Safety and security are an important component of these devices. Chromebooks will be equipped with security features to prevent inappropriate activities and downloads. Whether students are using the device in a school building or off campus, their internet access will continue to be filtered through district technology services. No software can filter 100% of improper content. Parents and guardians should take an active role in monitoring their child's access to the internet and development of digital citizenship. Upon checkout of the Chromebook, parents and students will receive printed and electronic material regarding the CFISD internet filter and how to access online resources. Parents will also receive digital citizenship information and tips for monitoring their students at home. Students will participate in short Schoology courses on digital citizenship and Chromebook care throughout the year to ensure that they understand the best way to work in a digital environment with appropriate responsibility. A website will be created for the CFISD LTE one-to-one program that will include the distribution schedule, handbook, return process, reporting a device lost or stolen, resetting passwords, frequently asked questions, etc. This information will be available in both English and Spanish, and the handbook will be provided in print by request. An online portal will be developed to allow students to submit issues with their device. CFISD technicians will work with the student to resolve the issue or swap out the device. Students can request instructional support through Schoology. Technology Services and Curriculum Instruction will collaborate with campus principals to provide an appropriate level of support and training to campus staff. Campuses will identify a point of contact to help facilitate the CFISD LTE one-to-one program. Technology Services will provide students with devices as quickly as possible and also provide teachers with highly responsive support. And now I'm turning it back over to Karen Fuller to talk about internet access for students.
Thank you. During the spring and summer of 2020, the district distributed hotspots to the households indicating a need for internet access. The district initiated a proof of concept to provide internet access by installing Wi-Fi on 2 school buses that were tested in areas with limited internet access. The proof of concept was successful and holds promise for future planning. The district is prepared to release a request for quotes immediately following this meeting for a 4G LTE broadband wireless solution to support students without internet access. A 4G LTE broadband wireless solution will enable the district to provide students an unlimited data plan by connecting to a district-managed mobile hotspot. Based on the survey sent to families, the district will distribute 4G LTE wireless broadband mobile hotspots. The 4G LTE wireless broadband solution will allow the district to filter content through CFISD. CFISD Chromebooks will be the only type of device that will be able to connect to the mobile hotspots. Unlimited internet access resources for learning will be available. Now I'm going to turn it back to Karen Smith for closure and questions.
As you can see, the CFISD LTE one-to-one program ties Schoology and CFISD Connect, which replaces Learning at Home, together to complete a high-quality instructional program. This program will position students to be successful in all learning environments. In conclusion, we are brought to the board to consider authorizing the superintendent to approve the purchase of devices for students, 4G LTE broadband wireless solution, and other items needed to support the CFISD LTE one-to-one program. At this point, the team will be available to address any questions you might have.
Dr. Henry?
Just one thing I wanted to add to this. It's not exactly on this subject, but it's the other half of it. But before people tune us out, I want to make sure that they hear. We have been in the process over the last 2 months and will continue over the next month and a half also preparing for in-person classes. So I want to make sure that we're going to have the 2 options available once school rolls around for in-person as dictated by the state at this time. But also we want to make sure that we have that virtual option, a very rich virtual option available to parents and students that choose to go that direction. So just wanted to make sure and clarify that right now, based on the state's guidelines, we are preparing for in-person and virtual instruction to be available in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. Ms. Heineman, would you have any questions?
Yes. So, Karen, I heard you say that the new Learning Together Everywhere, CFISD Connect, and CFISD Schoology. Schoology. I keep wanting to add an extra O.
I
It's
know, we all do.
Schoology.
We all
Okay,
do. Schoology.
Thank you for correcting me. That replaces the Learning at Home completely. That we're going to a new platform. I think that's important for parents to know, since some people had some struggles over in the spring. But I have a question about one-to-one. One-to-one. So every student in Cypress-SD will receive a Chromebook.
Yes, that is the plan, is to provide every student a Chromebook, and it'll be based on availability when those come in.
Regardless of need. So whether they have
Correct.
access to technology at home now or not, or if they're sharing it with their parents or sharing it with their siblings, every student. What if there are multiple students in the home?
Yes, because one of the things that we found is that, you have to kind of look at the spring may be different from the summer. And especially with a lot of the, what I would call video streaming, where they're watching a teacher present, what that does, now that's something separate with the LTE device, but what we ran into is issues with all of them being able to watch what they need to watch when they need to
Right.
watch it.
Yep.
And then also the fact with the actual LTE devices that we're talking about for internet access, we're looking at that solution, because what was happening is it takes more bandwidth whenever you have live instruction or a video type instruction.
Right.
All students will get a Chromebook device.
And you're going to prioritize the rollout for that?
Yes, because all of the devices will not come in exactly at the same time.
Right.
We will have to prioritize
Okay.
that, but I'll let Linda further address that just a little bit.
Okay.
And before Linda addresses the priority there, one of the things that we will do as we get closer to school starting is we will survey parents and see who will be in person and who will be using the virtual option. So that can also help us when we get to the prioritization.
So parents will be surveyed to state whether or not they will be sending their children in person to in-school classroom instruction or choosing to
Or virtual.
do at
And Teresa, would you just give the guidelines that the state put forth about when we're allowed to, when parents are allowed to make that decision?
Our plan currently, and we've not finalized the details of that, but our plan is towards the end of July, we would send out information to parents so that they could make that election as far as virtual or face-to-face. But we first thought it was important that we finalize our plans for virtual instruction, because it will look very different than the learning at home program that parents and students experienced in the spring. So the opportunity for C&I to really finalize that, we can share all the details of that. Then in addition to that, share all the details about the health and safety protocols we will have in place for face-to-face instruction so that parents can make an informed decision. So to Dr. Henry's question about the date for parents to make that election, we're going to do it at the end of July, but parents would have up until August the 10th, which is 2 weeks prior to the first day of instruction, to change their mind. What the state guidelines indicate, the district can put requirements that if a student elects virtual, we're not talking about the face-to-face, if a student elects the virtual option, we can establish requirements that would, or criteria that would require the student to maintain that platform until the end of the grading period. So we're still, again, working out the details, and so that's why it's important before we start surveying and asking parents that they know what all the requirements and criteria will be for both of those.
But this plan that we're proposing today, or that we're hearing about today, would take care of all students. If we had to go all online, we would be fully prepared for that just in case.
That's what our plan is. As Karen said, it'll be a rollout because we've got to make sure we get the technology in. We've got some inventory on hand already, and then we wait for the rest to come in. We have worked several plans out as possibilities for a rollout that we're looking at. We haven't confirmed it yet, but we have numbers to look at. If we have, like, the campuses that are 8% or above economic disadvantage, how many computers do we need there? You know, those that are 75%. So we already have all of those numbers. We want to look to see the parents that do have devices, but as you said, maybe only have 2 devices but have 3 children in there, being able to look at delivering one there.
Okay.
So, but eventually we will get to where every single student would have a Cypher ISD device.
And even for the kiddos that their parents elect to send them to in-classroom instruction, they would have that support at home to still work on their projects, to do their work at home. So I think that's a wonderful investment into all of our students, whether they're receiving instruction in the classroom, in the building, or at home.
That is correct, and as Teresa says many times, when we start school on August 24th, and we have face-to-face and online sections by parents, and if in a month, the state decides that we need to shut school down, our students will not miss a beat. Because they've got their Chromebook that they bring back and forth, and the plan that we're establishing for instruction very much aligns to being in school with some also real-life face-to-face instruction with teachers, that it'll be easy to be able to go completely virtual if the state shuts us down, but also could be able to, for us to be able to open up and our kids not missing a beat.
And I would just like to add to that, even for an individual student, that if there's an individual student that is in face-to-face and may become ill or need to self-quarantine, self-isolate for the 14 days, if we have that kid set up, ready to go with a device, they can immediately transfer into that virtual platform, never be counted absent, never get behind on work, and just continue moving forward. So it provides this really true continuity of instruction and support for all students, regardless of which platform.
That's a great point.
I have one last question, and then I'll pass it on to my colleagues. The ages, so is this for students from kindergarten through 12th grade?
It is
What-
all of our students,
Okay.
pre-K through
Okay.
12th grade
Okay.
will have access to a device. A device looks a little bit different for elementary, but we
Okay.
are looking at a device for every child.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Ogletree?
Are we talking about a course offering, complete course offering that, on this, Linda, for everyone? Every course that we offer, or is it a limited course offering for this virtual platform here?
So we're still finalizing our plans for the classroom, Dr. O, but it certainly will look different than what it looked like in the spring. The state provided some guidance on what we could be looking at, and so we are looking to be able to deliver to our students instruction that mirrors instruction in the classroom. And so there will be obviously, there will be face-to-face, real life, in-time instruction from teachers, as well as, just like in the classroom, the teacher does a mini lesson, for example, and then the students go off to either work on independent work or group work. The teacher pulls some kids together. The student is over here at elementary doing word work. Things like that already occur in the classroom, we'll be able to mirror through our Connect, or through our Connect CFISD. At secondary, they'll follow the schedule. They'll follow the schedule that they would follow in face-to-face school classroom, but again, with opportunities in high school as well. We have opportunities where the teacher provides instruction and the students are doing independent work, either research or partner work, and so that will continue. They're not right in front of the computer, but that's continuing as well.
Okay. On the prioritization that was done in the spring, did I hear you say we don't anticipate having to do that for the fall? If we're anticipating all the devices in?
I'm gonna, if y'all tell me if it's different, my understanding is we're leaving the devices out there that have already been delivered.
Yeah. Basically, what's happening, first of all, we have 10,000 devices that are out there right now that students are utilizing in summer school. And then we have another 30,000 devices available for use for students immediately. We've also ordered some additional, we'll be ordering additional devices. We already have a purchase order that was already out there for devices prior to this board meeting that is separate from this request to the board. So there's some of those devices. And then we'll be putting in the order for this. And this is why we came to you now, is because everybody is after the same devices. And one of the things that we found out is that they are prioritizing with healthcare at first, but we are a very close relationship in with our vendors, and they are working with us, and the bid will be back on July 14th, and then we will know on July 16th exactly how many we can get, kind of a timeline of when those devices will be coming in.
Okay. Well, my question is, if you prioritize special needs, ESL, at-risk, and AP students, what percentage of students are being left out, if that's the prioritization?
Well, Dr. O, that was our prioritization to begin delivering computers, but that's not the only students who received the technology. Once we got through that group, then anybody else who told us that we knew of that needed a computer, one was sent to them. In some cases, they came to the school and picked them up. In other cases, they were delivered. In fact, yesterday, we delivered more computers because, as you know, we chose not to continue forward with face-to-face summer school. So we had our algebra camp students that were going to come to face-to-face that needed their technology tools. So we delivered those yesterday. And Paula and her team have been having different opportunities for parents to pick up, but also have been delivering technology. So we started with that group, but we had other kids that also received their technology. And so now those students will continue to keep their technology, and now we'll dig as far as we can to be able to provide what we have in place right now while we're waiting for the others to get in.
Just so the board knows, and I don't know, Karen or Linda, who needs to answer this, how many are we actually planning on ordering? How many do we currently have? How many have we already ordered? And then how many, if the board approves this request today, will we order?
So approximately in the district owns, whether they're distributed to summer school students or we still have them on the classroom, the district owns about 40,000 Chrome devices. During the summer school, we distributed devices to kids during summer. Those are going to stay out. Today, we know we've got about 30,000 on hand that will start our distribution plan. So we've got a distribution plan that we're working with curriculum and instruction to start meeting the needs of students based on surveys. This request today, we're asking to purchase 75,000 devices over a period of time, because we know that the supply for those devices, we can't get 75,000 devices in by August 1st. That's a huge order to place. So over the fall semester, based on needs, based on distribution, based on what our instructional needs are, both in school and out of school, we will develop a process. Our goal is by the end of this fall semester, every student have a device regardless of needs. But we know because of the COVID and where we're at with meeting the needs to keep students engaged so they have the same experience in the classroom that they have at home, we're going to have to start looking at where those needs need to start at. And that's where we'll take our initial inventory that we have in place and start that distribution, and then we'll start receiving devices in. After this quote is returned, we'll have a better defined timeline of when the additional ordered devices will be coming in for us to distribute to students.
Well, thank you. I guess that's my question. The distribution, is it based upon need, or just if I'm an AP student, do I get one even if I may not even need it? And it could be better served with some other students. That's what I'm trying to.
And those are the plans that we're still working on, Dr. O. That's some of the things that curriculum and instruction are continuing to work with to figure out what that distribution will look like.
And I would say, I think that once we send out the information to parents and are able to gather that data, absolutely need's gonna have to take priority. Because if a student, just because I'm an AP student and I have 2 or 3 computers at home, doesn't mean that that's who we're gonna give the device to. So absolutely, those students without devices or access to internet would be at the top of the list. And then from there, C&I can prioritize those content areas and assist with that.
So we've already run several scenarios. We just don't know who needs them.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ryan?
Are we currently using the Chromebooks? Is that what we have?
Yes,
And,
we're currently using Chromebooks.
Okay. Katie was my tech support for our sequestered board meeting, so I'm glad she didn't quit after working with me. Thanks, Katie. Oh, you. Appreciate you. And so, in looking at this prior, where did we come up with the number of 44 million?
That 44 million is okay, first of all, it's about 39 million in Chromebook devices, and then the remainder is for the LTE devices as well as the connectivity for those devices. And then anything else to kind of support that, just a small contingency to support that we might not be aware of at this point in time. And the 40 million will be coming from bond funds, and the remaining 4 million from the general fund. And if you recall, when we presented the budget to the board, we included 10 million for COVID-19 type items, and this is exactly one of those type of items that'll be utilized is 4 million of that'll go towards the connectivity for these devices.
When we purchase these Chromebooks, are we actually purchasing the Chromebook itself?
Yes, sir.
So it's not a lease of some sort to where
No, we're actually purchasing it.
we're actually purchasing the Chromebook.
And we found that for technology, really the best thing to do is purchase. We've evaluated both options.
And then for multiple languages, you had mentioned, I think Karen, you might have said something regarding, one of y'all said something.
Yes.
How does that work when we have so many dialects here? And when you talk about our new arrival center and those students, how does that work in regards to the Chromebooks?
So, Mr. Jackson, you heard Karen share
Jiminy
that.
Pete.
Mr. Jackson, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay, Tom.
Mr. Ryan.
I usually don't ask this many questions, so now I'm throwing in with Tom. I mean, maybe 2 questions at the most last board meeting, maybe.
And Don, I really think that's meant to be a compliment, right?
I'll take it that way, Tom, just so you feel good.
Mr. Ryan, you heard Karen talk about these devices have a mic and a speaker. And so for ELL students, it's important to have that so they can be practicing the language and can hear the language. But as far as actually having systems where they access software that they access, that's actually not in the computer. It's part of our software systems that we have.
Okay. And then probably my last question is, so previously, because I was just curious, Katie had shared with me all the stuff that goes into getting these Chromebooks out, bringing them in, disinfecting them, doing all this stuff. You're still in that boot. Good night. That's crazy. So do we have the manpower because this is huge. If you think about the number of students we have,
Absolutely.
do we have the manpower?
And that's where we're also asking for some services as well, to ask for some assistance from our vendors to see if they can also help us get those things together, because it is a timely need. We want to make sure we're following all of that COVID protocol that we did in the spring with everything.
Okay, awesome. Thank y'all. This is a very informative presentation. And Tom, I hope I didn't take any of your questions. I'm sure I didn't, because mine were very surface level, so we should be good.
So since you mentioned COVID protocol, let me just kind of cover that real quickly so everyone is aware of what we are talking about. So not only is the device prepared and enrolled in our network so that it's on our stuff and entered into our inventory system, but the device is also sanitized. We use microfiber cloths and the specific sanitization liquid that we've been provided here in Cyfair, and they spray that on that cloth. They wipe everything down. It is then sanitized. Of course, everyone who's doing that is wearing masks and gloves. It's sanitized, it's then placed inside of a 2-gallon Ziploc bag, and that is sealed. So everything is sanitized and sealed. When that gets to that child, nobody else has opened that device. So everything inside is completely sealed. Same thing works with those hotspots. Those hotspots are cleaned, the cords are cleaned, everything that goes, and it's placed into a Ziploc bag. So when those students receive it, they receive everything in a Ziploc bag that is completely sealed and has not been touched by, human hands except for in gloves.
Ms. Blacksher?
Yes. My first question is for Dr. Macias, in that I'm wondering about our CTE courses, Linda, and I'm thinking my middle school granddaughter, I was asking her the other day what classes she's taking in the fall, and she was talking about, I think it's called production manufacturing, which back in the dark ages, we call wood shop or something like that. And then I'm thinking about our students who take welding, and those type of classes are very much hands-on. So how are we going to handle that?
Ms. Blackshear, we will be able to provide some of the instruction virtually through Schoology, through our teachers providing live instruction, demonstrations. But you're right, there are cases when the students, you don't have a choice. The student has to be there to be able to earn the hours of actually working with the machinery. And so the guidance from the state says that we need to be sure that we're upfront with parents about some of the classes that will require the student to come to the school to be able to utilize the machinery, the welding machinery, to be able to earn their hours if they choose the remote option.
Okay. And another question, and this probably is for technology, for Karen probably. We talked about every student having a device, receiving a Chromebook. What about the hotspots? Are those going to be by need only, or will every student receive one of those?
That's going to be based on the family survey that we send out.
Okay.
And as students need that device, that's how those will be distributed. That's why we're sending out the surveys, because we know that that's very high possibility.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
The real Mr. Jackson, go ahead.
And I also take that as a compliment, because Don Ryan has a head full of hair and I have none whatsoever. I really have no substantive questions. I do have some for the viewing audience. I have been waiting 8.5, 9 years for y'all to come and present this so that I can vote on it. I even had to endure my first month as a trustee with a 30-minute lecture from General Counsel Marnie Sims on the subject of technology. So I'm obviously in favor of the concept, but a couple of follow-up questions. Don already touched on the purchase versus lease option. Along that, and Mark talked about how big is big, how small is small, numbers. Along the line of both of those, we do have a certain loss rate. We have an idea what the loss rate is. Do your numbers provide for that loss rate during the year?
Yes.
So are you already building in that extra capacity as part of this?
Yes, sir. And basically what they found, what Katie and Karen have found based on their previous experience, is a loss rate of about 1%.
So you've already built in, we have 118,000 kids, you've built in the growth, and then you've built in the anticipated loss rate.
Yes, when we were actually getting our numbers together for all this, it was going to be over 120,000 devices.
Thank you. And of course, that loss rate is not just on the device itself, but chargers,
Correct.
and as well as hotspots. Have you also built in for your mobile hotspots excess capacity? Because I suspect you will have some parents who may not respond as swiftly as you would like for the need for hotspot.
Yes, we have. And another thing that we've done is we're working with, or at least we're asking in the proposal with the quotes, is that the ability, and a lot of them will work with us on this, is that if a device isn't being used, we can actually disconnect the service for that device and then reconnect it again so that we're not paying for service on a device that's not being utilized.
A follow-up question. So Julie asked you to break out between bond and G&A, and Don touched on that as well. For our viewing audience, for the bond funds, will that be a time period for the bonds that is tied to the anticipated life of the asset that we're purchasing?
Yes, yes, sir. And just for the viewing audience, it's for technology equipment such as Chromebooks, it's 5 years. And then for infrastructure, which is not part of this, it's 10 years.
We also used a term called life cycle. So will this have a life cycle shorter than that 5 years as technology increases, or in this case, do we think the life cycle is about the same as the estimated life?
Probably about the same. What we're planning to do is, of course, we already have the devices we have that are already on a replacement cycle. And then these particular devices, Chromebooks is we as a district choose to replace every 5 years, but we necessarily may not have to replace every 5 years. So we're going to try to structure it where we replace those devices and, you know, not have them all be replaced at the same time. So we feel very comfortable with that.
So that addresses the hardware. Do we have enough software licenses already approved? Does this cover additional
Correct.
software licenses, or will you come back to us to increase the number of software licenses?
No, we already have the software licenses that we took care of
For all
previously.
118,000 students. Excellent.
I assume you're referring to Schoology? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, everything that we're going to need. You know,
Correct.
because Mark said that we have to plan as if everybody will be virtual. We also have to plan as if everybody will be on campus, and we have to plan for some of each. So,
Anything else? No, we're fine. We have all those, yes, sir.
and this is a question that we've asked Linda twice, but I think it bears asking and answering again. For the students who happen to stay at home, why is it that they just don't get a free-for-all vacation?
Well, from the instructional standpoint, because the Texas Education Code says that we are to educate all students and provide the Texas essential knowledge and skills. And then, as you as board members know, that our philosophy inside FAIR, Dr. Henry says it all the time, is opportunity for all. And so we've got to provide the opportunity for effective, high-quality instruction for all of our students.
But how do we monitor? So let's say I'm staying home, and I would have chosen the stay-at-home concept, and I was never a good student until I got to college. What's to prevent me from turning on my school-issued computer and then walking out in the backyard?
Well, first of all, I'll just share again that remote school will look very differently than it did in the spring. And so there will be, our students will be having live on demand or live in real time instruction from our teachers, so they'll be able to monitor that way as well. But also through the systems we have in place. So when our students log into our single sign-on system, for example, we can tell what activities they did in the different systems, whether it's iExplore or Read 180 or Achieve 3000. We're able to tell how long they were idle and how long they were actually working. And more importantly, through Schoology, we're able to get we can print out for every student we wanted to, the different activities that were completed there or loaded up as well. So there are many ways at the elementary school, at the elementary level, it is part of our curriculum that our teachers keep monitoring notebooks, that they do conferring sessions with students. So all of that is documented on an ongoing basis.
So basically, there is in fact a pathway that the students will be following, and there are various checkpoints along the way that are actually digitally recorded and captured.
Absolutely. We will have the same scope and sequence, whether our students are face-to-face or in school. We will have the same checkpoints and benchmarks for the students. We will have the same grading guidelines. In fact, that's part of the guidelines from the state, whether students are physically in the classroom or they are remote, and the expectations for learning will be the same as well.
Last year, or maybe 2 years ago, we had a number of math students come to the board meeting, and they requested that we offer a course in differential equations as well as advanced calculus applications. The difficulty is they were spread among a number of different high schools. Clearly, we didn't have 20. Take it back to when my children were over at Libi. They wanted to take French, but there weren't enough students to have French, so the only foreign language offering was Spanish. So as part of this, as we evolve, will we be able to have students, whether they're at home or on campus, be able to take some of these courses that may only be offered at one particular high school campus? Another example is a handful of years ago, German 4 was only offered at Cypress-Fairbanks High School. So the students had to drive their first period and then return to their home campus. So is that an advantage of this, or will we be able to address it?
Mr. Jackson, we already do some of that. For example, geometry, 8th grade students taking geometry. There are many times where the student is at the middle school, and they connect into the high school classroom to be able to access the geometry content. So we already have some experience, we're doing this, but yes, it provides many more opportunities that we can provide for our students.
So what I heard you say is we already have real-time video instruction in the same fashion that we've had it at colleges and universities for the last, 15 years. But we see the opportunity to be able to enhance it further. So is that a correct understanding?
That is correct. There are many opportunities that we can now provide.
Clearing up one item, we use the acronym of LTE in two entirely different settings. One from a technology perspective and one from to describe the program. So if you would, go over what the two different LTEs are for me.
The two different LTEs, the 4G LTE has to do with broadband connectivity from a service provider.
And what does LTE stand for?
I knew you were going to ask me to remember that acronym.
So is that long-term evolution?
Yes, sir. That's what it stands for. And that's typically what is, whenever we go for internet connectivity for our cell phones or for a hotspot device, that's the verbiage that we use, is a 4G LTE broadband wireless connection. So those fit together, so that we know that that has to do with internet connectivity or connectivity to resources, remote resources. And then the LTE that we use for Cypress-Fairbanks ISD, we've labeled it CFISD LTE 1-to-1, so that we're learning together everywhere with a 1-to-1 environment for devices for our students.
Learning together everywhere.
Yes, sir.
Versus long-term evolution. You also used a phrase, and you've presented to the board before, your team has, but for the viewing audience, it may be somewhat new. You called it proof of concept Wi-Fi on buses. So explain what that means.
So there's a lot of school districts across the nation that are putting wireless internet connections on the buses and putting the buses in neighborhoods where there's few or no internet access because of economically needs or some other, maybe there's not the access from providers there. So we actually took that concept and tested it with a provider that we work with, put it on 2 buses, took it to two apartment complexes that we knew there was limited connectivity based on our summer school surveys, and we put those buses in that area, and the connectivity, actually, we're very surprised with the bandwidth that we're able to receive and the connections that we were able to receive, knowing that it's on the bus and the students can get connectivity, limited connectivity just to the bus connection. We have to realize that a bus is not very big, therefore it doesn't distribute it through the whole apartment complex, but it provides some connectivity. So we did that and was very successful. So now we have the ability, and I'm going to use the word mobile, that we have a mobile solution that if we need to take internet access to a handful of connectivity or where we've got connection that's needed, we have the ability to park a bus in a parking lot somewhere for someone or a mobile group of people to get connected.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bob, that covers all my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great presentation. I'm sorry, Karen, you can get up. No. Just a couple of questions, because I think the board has pretty much covered all the questions I had. And one of them is, and I'm sorry, Karen, it's going to be for Dr. Macias. Linda, I was just wondering, whenever we're talking about that, and I know there was a certain percentage we were looking at, we felt like would be staying home. Will our teachers be teaching a combination in their classrooms, or will we have teachers that will be strictly teaching at home or from a classroom but to at-home students?
Mr. Covey, we're still working all of that out. But what we do have, and we're going to be working with I think y'all heard me last year talk about our COVID Principals Committee. So we're actually meeting with them next week, and we're going to talk to them about different instructional arrangements for their teachers. Because depending on how many students end up coming back, they may have a teacher who has a classroom of students plus maybe 2 or 3 that are connecting to the classrooms, Mr. Jackson has been saying, so they're getting their instruction. But it's also possible that the principal may choose to have teacher A doing all the face-to-face and teacher B doing all of the remote. It just depends on how many students end up in each of the individual classrooms. So there'll be options there. I'm sorry? Okay, so I'm here, but our teachers will all be reporting to the building.
Okay, and that was another question I had, because with social messaging that we hear and people knowing that we're on the board, I was hearing that they were getting a variety of activities from teachers during the spring, that some teachers will be checking in quite often, and then some would just check in every once in a while. And I assured them that there was a certain time that they needed to be on call or be part of it. And that was part of the way we had it set up. But I also think that that's a whole lot of rumor that gets started, and I really want that to be quelched as fast as we can. So our teachers will have to be checking in, and they'll have to be there in person, basically, right?
We will have, again, this is going to look very different than what we saw in the spring. That's why we purchased Schoology, to make sure that we were going to be able to provide real, live, face-to-face, being able to see the teacher, real life instruction by the teacher for the students. So not the students not just doing activities or the teacher checking in once a week or a lesson once a week. This is gonna be communicating, working with the teacher on a daily basis with a schedule. So we will have a schedule for every single grade level. We will actually have to submit that to the state with what our instruction is going to look like. And so the schedule will define all of the different times when the teacher is working with students throughout the day.
Okay.
Mr. Covey, if I could just add to that. This is like comparing, I'd say, a Model T we had last spring to a brand-new 2020 car. I mean, the platform's going to be much better. We're going to have more live instruction. There's going to be synchronous, asynchronous opportunities for students in a virtual environment. So this is a whole different ballgame. And plus, with the proposal that we have for you today, if the board approves, everyone's going to have a device, because again, I would love to be able to tell those of you at the table and those that are watching us online what this school year is going to look like, but just like national and state leaders, we have no idea, but we want to be prepared, and we want to make sure that not only do our students we don't want them to fall behind, we want them to progress, whatever their situation might be. One thing I want to add, and Linda did a great job of touching on the instructional portions of what a day will look like, but Teresa, I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here. Explain from a funding standpoint and the state standpoint why we have to monitor whether a student is in person or virtual.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the key differences in what parents and students experienced, and even teachers experienced in the spring versus what we're going to be required to do in the fall. We actually will have to take attendance for each class period. And how teachers are able to take that attendance, again, as Dr. Macias indicated, we're going to have kind of a hybrid, if you will, of what the state is provided as options. There's absolutely going to be live instruction provided. In addition, there's going to be asynchronous instruction where students are going to be working independently on some activities. But as far as that attendance, it could be that they're on in its first period at 7:20 and the teacher's taking attendance of everyone's there, and they're giving them the instruction for the day, lesson, whatever. Another day may be that the attendance for that class or the next class, there's 3 different criteria or ways that a teacher can take attendance in that class. It could be actually logged on time into the learning management system, doing things on that, which obviously captures that time. Could be submitting assignments or activities that are required to, that are due for that class. And the third could be that direct contact with teacher, where they're actually either seeing them live or on the phone or email or whatever. It just depends. And that gives districts flexibility who do not have the opportunity to provide all students with devices. So that kind of satisfies that low-tech accountability, if you will. But we will maintain attendance and have to take attendance in every single class, and that's the accountability we have to meet in order to receive funding for ADA. In addition, we've had a lot of discussions. If you recall, in the spring, when that was before we closed school, we suspended all of the exemption criteria, attendance criteria for exemptions and perfect attendance. We're not going to have to do this with this model, because what would happen if a student does what Mr. Jackson was kind of sharing as an example, if a student just kind of says, I'm going to wait till Friday to do my work, guess what? And they don't log on or they don't do anything, they've been counted absent in all their classes, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we believe by maintaining all of our attendance incentive, there's also that incentive then to get that kid logged on, staying connected every single class period, every single day. So much more accountability, both for the teacher and for the student.
And just to add, because Teresa, you already mentioned this, that attendance piece, again, if the student is sick, the student can log in from home and is counted present. Or if the student had to go to some family event, as long as the student is doing their work remotely and we can document that, then they're counting present. I wanted to add one more thing, Mr. Covey. During summer, right now in summer school, the instruction looks very different than the spring as well. It is actually the type of instruction that we're talking about. The teacher is delivering instruction, working with students every single day.
Okay. Yes.
Dr. Macias, just to clarify, also on the attendance, if that student was under quarantine for 14 days, they would be able to be counted present if they were virtual, right?
That is correct.
If they meet that criteria of logging in every day and doing an
They
assignment.
have to do the work.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to do the work.
Okay, thank you very much, and I kind of will reiterate what Mr. Jackson said, because I remember from being on the board we talked about 3 to 1, and then we moved it to 2.5 to 1, and then a 2 to 1. And I don't want to thank COVID for anything, but I think it's awesome that we're going to be at a 1 to 1 now. So that's something we've been aiming for years, and so it's good to have it. Are there any other questions from the board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board authorize the superintendent to approve the purchase of devices for students, LTE internet access for students, and other items needed to support a one-to-one solution through the Department of Information Resources Purchasing Cooperative at an amount not to exceed $44 million.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Blackshear. Do we have any questions or concerns right now? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. I don't think we have any further business. I would like to thank y'all for the presentation. I want to thank the board members for taking their lunch and coming up here and working. And everybody have the rest of your July an enjoyable time, and we'll see you in August. Thank you.
Great job, technology.